Welcome, everyone. We're here for an exciting video chat, like we're calling them now, little vid chats with Cynthia Sue Larson, and it's going to be on the Mandela effect. And I'm sure so many of you have heard about it. It's been around since the 90s, like 2000s, right? And but she's going to go in because she's written a book on it. She's into quantum jumping, which I love, all of these different topics. And so many of us are just having objects appear and reappear. So this is going to be really an interesting one. So welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with you today. And I love this topic. I just love it, obviously.
Exactly. You've written books and everything. But the thing is, would you just give a little bio on your background? When you were on before, I gave a whole show bio. So
sure.
We'll have a different one this time.
Okay. Well, from my point of view, I'm just, to me, I'm an average everyday person, but I see that I'm actually more like a lifelong mystic. So I knew I didn't quite fit on the planet. I felt like I'd made a mistake somewhere, like, okay, wrong planet, kind of let me back where I would belong. In other words, a place where people know that we manifest what we're thinking. So therefore we stay in alignment with our thoughts. So that was really who I came into the planet as. Beautiful family raised me who are very different. I think most of us who are in empaths or intuitives or intuitive feelers, usually we are from a family that's very different from us, or that used to be the case. I then studied physics at UC Berkeley because, again, wanting to ground what I'm doing and who I am in this reality. And it seemed like nothing better than hard sciences, except when you get into hard quantum science, it gets very conscious, which is what I love. So I really got into the metaphysics.
It's great the way that evolves that, yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect. So I did study physics at UC Berkeley. The physics professors that know me, that I attended classes with, like Professor Trilling, I've kept him up to date with what I'm doing, and he's surprisingly supportive. And I've met current professors, such as Dr. Yasunori Nomura. I've told him, you did not used to exist in my reality, and he understands that. So, but I think we're in a whole new quantum age right now. And I've been dedicating my work since the 1990s, when I published that book, Reality Shifts. First, it was just a really limited edition book, very, very personally bound, like a homemade book. But more recently, it's come out in paperback edition. And that one talks about what we now know of as the Mandela effect. I was calling it Reality Shifts in 1999, at the same time that author PMH Atwater had a book called Future Memory, talking about
I see. Yeah.
reality shifts. Yeah. So that's where it all started. And I did that because I was really, after my Kundalini awakening in the 1990s, I became aware with all this energy rushing through, and I'm seeing reality literally changing in front of me. That Kundalini experience really made it impossible for me to climb back into my pretense and facade and wear that mask of I'm just a normal person. And so I had to kind of come out as I'm a reality shifter. And basically, the premise that I've been suggesting and offering to people for over 20 years is we are all reality shifters. Now we've got the term Mandela effect that helps to give that yet another window into this world of what that is.
So how did it, like from what you had, the reality shifts and then the other, how did the Mandela effect become the official term?
Well, it took a while for people to notice. I think Nelson Mandela being alive again is shocking. I talk in my book, Reality Shifts, about actor Larry Hagman being alive again, also a cat being alive again. So I was calling it alive again. These were two examples of these reality shifts. But I don't think people were noticing in the 1980s and 1990s when I was. So I was a little on that bleeding edge, not just the cutting edge. I was like way out there.
Right.
I knew this was real. I knew it was happening. And I wanted to make sure that when people stumbled into it, they don't think they're losing their minds, because clearly we're coming into this great awakening on the planet. More and more people moving into this, what you might call a dream state, where the fundamental core level of reality is not the physical reality that we tend to think, like this physical bodies and physical items and objects. There's a fundamental core reality underneath all that physical.
it was interesting in my last newsletter. I was looking at, because I'd written a whole one in another one about the Greek had Chronos time, Kairos time on Eon. And during the pandemic, so many people thought time was moving weirdly, because they were out of their structural quantitative Chronos time and were really into this Kairos circular time. So it's interesting that just kind of priming everyone for this, what you're talking, you know what I mean? Making people more aware of it.
Yes. And some people experience time stopping, slowing. I've got a whole time shift page on my Reality Shifters website dedicated to about at least a half dozen of these experiences where people are noticed arriving before they get there. There are words in the Norwegian culture, they call it etion and, Vardiager. Etion is the Finnish word. So these two cultures, the people from Finland and the people from Norway, and both of those are part of my genetic heritage, by the way, it's just a coincidence, I'm sure. But they know that people can arrive before they get there. It's so much so that they have words for it. So that tells you how far back this time loops and these time shifts go.
This is so interesting in this, I'm on this Joseph P. Farrell vid chats forever. And there's one of the participants is a Native American. And she was talking about the Native Americans whenever they're going to go anywhere and then something happens, they can't go. They have to send someone because the spirit of them has gone ahead. And they have to reach out to that spirit and tell them they're not coming. I mean, it was like very similar to that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is where there's actually what it sounds like if you're wondering, what is Vardiager in Norway? It's where, and it's happened to me with my daughter. I don't live in a snowy environment, but I live in California. It's sunny most of the time. I could hear like lots of voices on the front porch. I could hear the door opening. I left the door slightly ajar. It was a sunny day. I'm in the kitchen. I could kind of see and hear. I couldn't pay much attention because I was tending to something I was cooking in the kitchen at that time. But I could clearly hear my daughter's voice right there on the porch, her friends. And so I think I shouted to him, come on in, the door's open. And then it was all quiet. And then I went to the front door, and instead of seeing the shapes of people there, nobody was there. Instead of hearing voices, nobody was there. And so it's a little disconcerting. And then about 20 minutes later, my daughter and her friends arrived. So it was that time shift. Yeah. And I think in Norway and Finland, it makes sense because then oh, they're coming, put the kettle on. Let's have some hot tea. It's snowy out there. So you hear the people stomping their boots and everything and laughing, and they're on the porch, and then they're not. And there's no sign of it, and all that stomping and everything not there. But I've definitely heard that.
So if those cultures had that, it must be like every culture has that.
I think, yeah, if it's
one back far enough,
yeah. So that's one type of experience. Then there's time looping, where I'll see a sequence of events recurring, and I've had that happen that I describe in my book, Reality Shifts, where a couple of times it happened. Once a woman was handing out business cards at a small group. We were together in another lady's house. And then the woman came and started handing out business cards again. And, when that happens, I don't want to be rude. So I'm just thinking, well, that's interesting.
Wow. These are major shifts.
Yeah. And I asked, well, didn't we just get these? And people just looked at me funny, like, no. Like, wow. Okay. But it's not the only time I've seen that. I like it better when there's a witness with me who also notices. It's like that scene from The Matrix, where the glitch in the Matrix scene where the black cat walks across the doorway twice. And you only expect a cat to do that once in exactly the same manner. Well, I saw a woman enter a hotel lobby twice, and it was the same woman dressed in the same beautiful gown coming out of the parking lot, moving toward the lobby, right past where I and a friend were talking, and we noticed her do this twice. So these are more examples of time shifts. And then there's time slowing to a stop. There are lots of ways time can be very interesting.
As we're talking here now, I just remembered my brother and I, like 30 years ago, we were in New York, and we were on the Lower East Side. We had been there because I was in clothing, and we were supposed to be staying at someone's place, and we got lost. And this car kept following us around the block. We were really in a bad neighborhood. It was like 10, 11 at night. And all of a sudden we saw this Greek restaurant with all these lights, and we were so happy. And we went in and had this fabulous Greek meal. And then we walked back out and we were in New York and got on the subway, and we went back. There was no Greek restaurant.
Yes.
It
exactly.
was, but like you're saying,
Yes.
we can talk about it together
Yes.
because we both experienced it.
Well, thank goodness. Isn't it it's such a difference when you've got thank goodness, thank goodness. I just thank goodness all the time, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank the cosmos, thank the creator, because then you've got someone and you're not making it up. It wasn't just you in a dream. This really happened. It happened. It happened. And I've had reports of similar things where a person has gone to lunch in a seaside town to a restaurant that they wanted to return to with their friend, and they couldn't go back to it because there was never a restaurant on that street in that location. And nothing like it in the whole town. And it's, that feeling. It's like, what? And if you're like that gentleman, you probably went back to New York and checked very carefully because it's such a special experience, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's when it's so great to have those witnesses.
Yes.
So what are some of those Mandela effect ones that you have witnessed?
Okay. Yeah. The idea of Mandela effects, it's like when I talked about Larry Hagman being alive again, and I've now met one other person who noticed it at the time. He has a podcast, Robert Manny, and he does the Guys podcast. So he's the other person. But in all these years, I found like one other person who's like, and he brought it up first. He's like, Larry Hagman. I'm like, yeah, Larry Hagman. But you had to kind of be meditating in the 70s and 80s a lot, I think, to have your frequency so that you can catch these other realities. Now more of us are noticing. So what are we noticing? We're noticing things like lots of times movies seem different. And we talked about scenes in movies that apparently never happened, such as in Jaws, you're going to need a bigger boat, or we're going to need a bigger boat. And in Forrest Gump, life, it used to be, I remember this clearly, it used to be, Mama always said, life is like a box of chocolates. But now that's not ever what the movie dialogue was. And they didn't change it. It's now always been, Mama always told me, life was like a box of chocolates, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then Crocodile Dundee, I remember him saying, that's not a knife. This is a knife, But now it's different. I can't even remember what it is. Some of these are like, what the heck is happening? It's just
the one like the Saint Teresa one, because I kind of do remember her being canonized, and that was one that, and I find like quite a few people, that's one that they.
Wait, tell me about that one. That one's new. I remember her being canonized. So she wasn't? What happened?
Oh, she died like way after that. When that really happened, she was being canonized in her real life, like it was like then she died like way later.
Right. So now it's different.
It was like a real,
Yeah, time frame. That kind of shift happens a lot, where when what you think happened at a totally different time.
Right.
It's mind-boggling when the person's alive again, and that doesn't just happen to Larry Hagman and Nelson Mandela. It's happened to lots and lots of people. Like I remember Jane Goodall having died shortly after Diane Fossey. And when Diane Fossey was murdered, I thought, well, that's horrible, just horrible. And then it was within the same year. Thank goodness it's no longer true. But then I remember Jane Goodall was also murdered. And then I was outraged. It's like, no, that's unacceptable. Who's murdering the great female primate researchers? This is not okay. I just had such a strong feeling of that. And then I didn't give it much thought. And then suddenly, somewhere down the road, down the line, I noticed Jane Goodall had a speaking appearance. I'm like, what? And like, she's alive? And then I got to see her in person, which was so thrilling for me. And I think a lot of people noticed that she had died and come back. I'm not the only one that remembers that. And then lots of just other actors, celebrities, sometimes people in your periphery, like friends of your family or neighbors that you don't see that often. You've heard that they're dead and they're back again. And I mentioned the cat Ashes in my book, Reality Shifts. That was my roommate's cat. And he definitely was dead and wasn't coming around like he had been. And then I was feeling terrible that I hadn't spent enough time with him, having all those kind of regrets. Right. The next thing I knew, he was back. He was alive. And I got my second chance. So this can happen to us all. And we're living in this time of Mandela effects, reality shifts, quantum jumps.
Mm-hmm. Well, consciousness seems to be coming more into the fore. We've been so in this concrete materialism, right?
Yes, we're getting assistance, I believe, from lots of earth energies, cosmic energies. We're seeing it right now with the solar events happening, the Schumann frequencies, and then just by virtue of the times, it's kind of like there are lots of, there's a field of study called geobiology, and we're totally going through some geobiological changes as well. I think all these things, as well as the native indigenous peoples, the First Nations peoples, talk about these cycles of times are coming when we will go from the fourth world to the fifth, as the Hopi say. And obviously, it seems clear to me that this is happening.
And it seems like the powers that be are just scrambling to get greater and greater hold on everyone, and censorship, everything, because people are just like waking up, you know?
Right. I think it's kind of going to be fruitless. I don't think that's going to go over too well. I mean,
they seem to not have a plan, you know, it just
yeah, it's kind of a mad scramble. And some people would say, but Cynthia, I can see what's going on. And like Bill Gates is buying all the farmland. It's looking kind of stark and dire. You know, things are looking bad. But I'm an eternal optimist. I feel like no matter what it looks like, there's always something bigger than Bill Gates. Always, you know, there's always something bigger, that 0 point, that zero entropy, God, the creator, whatever. It doesn't matter what your spiritual tradition is. There's a convergence that happens there with the perennial philosophy that Aldous Huxley wrote about, that I think it was the philosopher Leibniz that first brought to bear, talking about the philosophy of perennia, and just that everything does come together. And now Leibniz was one of the creators of calculus. So he's talking about consciousness itself, that you can have a first order perception of something, but that's just because I touch something, that's not my consciousness. That's just the beginning. Leibniz noticed that we have a second order, a higher order perception of the first perception. And these levels of consciousness are the key to consciousness. So this is what we see when we're coming together in this point of convergence for collective consciousness, in this great awakening, in this golden era, in this golden age. So it doesn't matter about these seemingly dark situations, because we are united at a very fundamental level. Yeah.
And then entanglement just becoming such an everyday word.
Absolutely.
But he just so like into it now. Yeah.
Yeah, these consciousness terms from quantum physics will become more mainstream. I think they already are. You know, people are they're saying things like multiverse. They're talking about the Mandela effect. They're talking about, it used to be intuition was a big deal, that people used that word. And synchronicity was a big deal. And those are still a big deal. But we're moving to a level where we're noticing, what if collectively we can work together to say no to something that seems evil, for example. And we don't need to vote, and we don't need to send emails, because it's a collective choice that we're making as conscious co-creators. That's how the Mandela effect is really working. And that's what gives us the sense that we, the people around the entire planet, have much more power and real sovereignty of our souls to work together collectively than any of the, you know, seemingly evil powers that be might be trying to exert.
Right. And just like when one person with the observer effect, it's sort of linear. But like when we have the group, it's more textual. It's like you get like a whole package, you know, like when everyone's coming together on this.
There's definite strength from coming together, especially when there is coherence. In other words, there's enough of a similarity of perspective. But like you said, the value comes from the difference in perspective too. So it's a combination thing. Both are required. And that's why I think we're being so challenged in this day and age to acknowledge and respect others, even if we thought we don't agree with them or we think we don't like them. It's so important right now to overcome those biases and to start recognizing that, there by the grace of God go I, that's another one. People may think like, I would never do that. I would never, whatever. But it's so important to have that respect. And I think we're getting a little taste of another aspect of quantum paradigm, which has to do with this idea of yes and, or quantum logic, if you will. So instead of this, we're familiar with true and false, black and white, right? Like I'm right, you're wrong, and I'll have an argument and you'll see my point, blah, blah. Okay, that's very old school. That's very material realist. It's very Boolean logic. Mm-hmm. It's the old way. So we're coming back into nature, which is yes and. So true and false, not true, not false. Mm-hmm. Means you have a point of view which is subjectively true, and the reality you just witnessed, I believe that you saw that, even though I didn't. Mm-hmm. So instead of needing to argue about it, we can say like, okay, so your way of seeing things, it's equally valid, and I do respect you for that. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge leap, and we're being kind of pushed into it because some of the scientific experiments are showing there may be no such thing as objective reality. Maybe it only is subjective observations, mm-hmm. and they can be different. You can have an experiment is showing right now that there's evidence that two observers at the same place and same time witness two different things. So this is big for the Mandela effect. It's big for the world.
Getting out of the either or into the both and.
Yes. Yes, and it sounds like improv to me when you play in acting and you're doing improv and someone says, like, you think you know what you're doing. You walk on stage like, okay, I'll be the baker and I'm selling pies or something. And someone runs up to you and says something like, quick, you're the only one who can save him. I'm like what? and suddenly they see you as some sort of energy healer. It's like, and so it's yes and, like, I'm a baker. So it's like, okay, can you mind the shop, the pie shop? I've got to go save someone's life. Be back in a minute. And they're like, what? And it's like, so it's really funny. And I think you can see some degree of chaos in the world right now from that exact observation. So we'll all be doing better to do yes and improv style.
Yeah, and just politically, I'm with this party or that. No, it has to be, I think when I was thinking about it, like way back, like our ancestors, my parents, everybody always, you never discuss politics or religion. And they kind of see that now, like how that just divides, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's okay to have your own feelings. And if people really if people genuinely really want to know, and they're going to hold that in that sacred space, or at least have a thoughtful, respectful conversation, great. But you're right. If they didn't make that invitation, you sure don't want to be the one blurting it out.
Right.
Uninvited, it may go clunk. And besides, what you're seeing may be very different than what they're experiencing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's extremely important to be respectful now, much more than I think we've ever seen before. I think what we're witnessing really with this Mandela effect and this great awakening is every single one of us is, like it or not, being dragged, sometimes kicking and screaming, into this manifestation field. And we're just recognizing that what we're thinking and feeling is manifesting. Mm-hmm. And so we need to be careful about how we treat ourselves, others, and the world.
Yeah. I've become so conscious of that. I discovered a labyrinth, a short one, only 15 minutes away on top of the hill. It's in the cemetery, but it's just beautiful. You just look out over this. So I've been going every other day, and it really like puts you more, because you really have to stay centered during all of this.
Yes. Oh, I love the process of walking in with the question, take some time in the center and then come back out. I had one of my most profound experiences ever it was in the Grace Cathedral. They have
I've been there.
Yeah. And so they've got the Chartres Cathedral pattern on the floor. Uh-huh. And so I was walking that and I asked my question, basically just wondering what should I be doing next, because I'd been going through a divorce and I was trying to figure out, should I go back into the corporate world, project management, that kind of thing. And so this was that pivotal moment. I got to the center of the labyrinth, and then I've asked my question. I'm waiting for the answer. I start hearing the cathedral bells start chiming, like
Wow.
bong, bong. And I get this very clear impression. Like there's a question coming to me. What are you living for? That's my answer is another question.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like bong, I feel like I need to answer this before the clock stops chiming. So I just blurt out in my thoughts what I'm thinking and feeling. And it's love. I'm living for love.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed everything. It changed the trajectory. So I did not go back into corporate project management. Things would be different. I would not be doing this work, but I don't know that I'd even be here. I think my spirit would not be in that reality at all.
That's such a magical labyrinth because you got those beautiful windows. But the first time I was there was late afternoon, and all the lights are just shining down on you as you're walking. And then they were singing the Vespers in the background. Oh, it was, and I went back like 3-4 times and never could quite recreate that.
It gave me goosebumps just hearing about
But
it.
it was like how it was probably in Chartres before they put all the chairs on top of the labyrinth.
Right. I've been to Chartres too, because I had to go after seeing the one in Grace Cathedral. It's like, okay, I got to see what they did. And you're right. It was, if you know that they've done that, then it's not such a shock, but it is kind of a shock. Like, why? Like, yeah. But I guess they need to make the best use of the space. So,
Yeah. So the other thing is quantum jumping. This was really big, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 8 years, everybody was talking and then it kind of died out. Like, what's your take on quantum jumping?
Well, it's another side. It's the intentional side of the reality shift Mandela effect experience. So whether we call it law of attraction, timeline jumping, quantum jumping, to me, it's really bringing this idea of intentionality to this reality shifting Mandela effect process that we're all living in. We're soaking in it. This is happening. So whereas reality shifting and Mandela effect is sort of like, whoa, what just happened here? Whoa, that's crazy. Quantum jumping is going in with a little bit more involvement from the intentional side, recognizing, okay, I think I'm ready to try one. Like I want to see if I can jump out of a chronic illness. I just did that one last year because I came down with a long COVID. So that got COVID early on before it was supposed to be in the United States. Last week in January, I got sick with what must have been COVID. Then first week in February, weird symptoms began to be continued for another year and a half with more and more weird symptoms every week and with brain fog and the whole thing. But because of quantum jumping and because of my practice of meditation and spiritual practice every morning, asking how good can it get today? How God can it get? How good can I get? How God can I get? I'm just powering up with that energy, which is what's needed when you do these quantum jumps. Energy always coming, of course, from source, zero entropy. So I'm just in touch with that, recognizing, okay, I'm in service. From there, then I know no matter what it looks like, okay, it looks like I'm sick with something I can't think. It's way worse than brain fog. It's brain damage. I'm brain damaged. But like, okay, I can barely breathe. I can't exercise, blah, blah, blah. Hundreds of symptoms. We're in a nutshell, feels like aging 30 years overnight. And I think the only ones that know what I'm talking about are people who have long COVID. It is that bad because if you don't have it.
I know a couple people and they just it just on and on. Yeah.
Right. So for me, the key, thank God for quantum jumping. So this is not like a fad that it's like, oh, it came and it went. Heck no. Quantum jumping is here forever. Yeah. I think with things like the Mandela effect with reality shifts, that gets our feet wet. And then we decide, okay, I'm ready to go for something. And something like healing yourself, healing others, that starts getting important. Then it touches our hearts. Then we want our loved ones to be healthy. We want ourselves to be healthy. And so that gave me the impetus to know it's like, it looks like I'm really sick, but I never ever felt like this is going to be forever. I just accepted where I was. But the optimistic attitude is a quantum jumping attitude. It's like you take where you are, but you're always asking, how good can it get? What is the gift in this so-called disaster? This problematic reality. This thing I do accept. I'm not denying it. It's like, okay, I'm in it. Ha, ha, ha. And I was laughing at myself all the time. stumbling, hitting the walls, falling over, which I don't usually do. But
Really?
that was,
Yeah.
yeah, because of loss of balance, tendons and joints giving out suddenly and unexpectedly,
Wow. Really?
neuropathies. I told you hundreds of symptoms. When they all flare at once, then you're going to fall down. And so
Wow.
fortunately, I had martial arts training. So when the walls attacked, I'm blocking the walls. Like, ha, ha, ha. I know the walls are not attacking. I know it's me falling down, but I was fine. I didn't have a single injury. So that was good. But anyway, but the point is I could just stay focused. Like, how good can it get? That how good it can get would be, there'd be a gift in this whole experience. It's going to show me something that I can show humanity. And sure enough, it did. I think I'm still processing it, and I'm still getting back to where I was before the long COVID. So I'm not able to do everything I could do because I'm taking it easy. My organs were all damaged for a year and a half. So they need to regenerate completely. They will. But in the meantime, I'm learning about longevity. I'm learning about mitochondria. I'm learning about how our bodies have such an amazingly complex and beautiful immune system that we can work with our foods, with our lifestyle, with the way we breathe, with the way we meditate, natural substances. So it's just a completely natural return to health, and it worked. So I feel very blessed for that. And I feel like the solutions that we often look for in our Western world, we tend to think like we just want one pill or one injection or one treatment. But what if nature's not set up quite like that? What if it really wants us to look at what are you doing with your food? What are you doing with everything? Are you resting enough? Yep. Yeah, exactly.
But that's such an interesting concept to think about quantum jumping into wellness.
Yes.
It's like, I never thought of that concept. That's a great one.
Yeah, because then I could feel like it's right there. I know I'm right there. I'm healthy. I've come out the other side. I've come out with wisdom, with insights, with information to share. And so then it becomes possible. And then always every day, just touching that touchstone of zero entropy, just that giving myself time and space to heal. Twice a day, I would just lie on my stomach on the bed with my head draped over and just comb my scalp and hair and breathe really deeply and kind of rock left and back, right? It turns out, I found out later, everything I was being guided to do by my angels, that resets the autonomic nervous system. So I was just being guided to do exactly the right thing.
The rocking.
Yeah, the rocking back and forth. And I could feel like this complete receptivity return, which had been blocked by the panic and a nightmare of long COVID, that would all just clear for a couple times a day. So I'd have a couple of 10-minute shots every day of complete healing. Very easy to do, just didn't cost a thing. It just lying down, just combing my scalp. It started with my hair, funnily, because hair falls out with long COVID. And I thought, well, that's it. That's not
back.
I thought, yeah, that's it. It stops here. This has been kind of amusing perhaps until now. This is not funny anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
So I've been able to learn how to get hair that I like better than I've ever liked my hair in my whole life. And that was an outcome of all this too. That's, again, quantum jumping. It's like realizing you accept where you are with an optimistic perspective and just recognize you need the energy to draw from. I recommend Source, that 0 point God creator. Touch into that. That's got everything we need. And then hold that positive vision, line yourself up with what you need, what you love, what you visualize, and then just act as if, and you'll be guided right there. No problem.
I was watching one of your videos a while back, and it was a YouTube one, and it was so good. You were in Boulder at a tea house.
Yes.
They had brought over brick by brick from Russia. Can you just tell us that experience? It was really good.
Oh gosh, thank you. That was so special to me. Yes. So I was visiting Boulder, Colorado, and there's this beautiful Dushanbe tea house, which indeed has been completely moved, relocated, and it's got some wooden beams, and it's very Asian looking. So I forget exactly the city it came from, but it was a complete huge project to relocate this entire building right to the edge of downtown Boulder Central Park. So it's right at the edge. So it's looking at this beautiful scenery, this little creek that runs through the park, lots of trees. but the tea house itself is sublime. And it's just such a beautiful environment. And you can feel so how much intention and blessing and prayer went into this place.
Mhm.
So it's my favorite place to go when I'm visiting Boulder, to have dinner with a friend, or just to, have a cup of tea, have a meal. The food is very good. It's excellent. But this particular time is noteworthy because this one time that we're talking about, the reason I did the video is because when I visited this tea house, I think it was January 2020 that I'd gone. And I was getting messages from my guides at the time, enjoy this trip, enjoy it so much. And so I'm already always asking how good can it get, but I'm over the top with that mood. So I get there and I'm just like, yeah, let's live it up. I'm going to meet my friend there. And so I met my friend at the tea house, and while we were there, we had a wonderful meal. We were talking about bringing this heaven on earth kind of feeling back to the earth, that even though there's so much politics, so much seeming division, that all it really takes is enough of us to resonate at these higher vibrational frequencies, that we literally can bring this possibility of this golden age, heaven on earth, into reality. And I was saying that's what we're planning to do with this International Mandela Effect Conference that I'm part of. We were talking about that. We were talking about all kinds of things. Anyway, we were talking so much that somehow the whole restaurant had cleared out. It was just the two of us. And I think we were still sipping our tea. The meal was long finished. And the waiters, they're so respectful and so tuned into vibrations. They encouraged both of us, go ahead and stay. My friend Nicole and I, we were just so amazed, and it touched our hearts that this waiter said that. He really meant it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it occurred to me, my friend Nicole said, well, I should get going soon. And I said, okay, let's get a picture while we're together. I stood up. As I stood, a single pink, like a tea rose fell from midair in front of me and landed at my feet. And I looked at it and I picked it up and I asked Nicole, did you drop this? And she said, no. And then now we're both looking around like, did it fall from somewhere? Was there, sometimes there are decorations. Maybe there was a wedding party earlier.
Right. Yeah.
It's just the two of us in an empty restaurant. Nobody threw it. It didn't fall from anywhere. It just fell from midair. And I'm holding it and looking at it. And it seemed like the physical embodiment of what we were talking about heaven on earth. And it had that beautiful Mother Mary rose fragrance that I associate with the divine feminine. And it was just perfect. I didn't think to get a picture of it till hours later back in my hotel room. Fortunately, I thought, oh, let's get a picture of it. So this is what happened. And this is a manifestation to me of a physical indicator that this is not only a possibility, it's real, it's happening. And there's more to the story. I think I did cover it in the video. I can't remember.
Yeah, this was like you don't have it when you get to the airplane.
Yes. I know that maybe you're not supposed to carry a rose on the airplane. I know that, but this is a special rose. I never do this, but I'm like, okay, let's, I thought it was in my purse. I saw it in my purse, but then at some point on that journey, it vanished. And I know I had it in a careful place in the purse, but it was gone. I checked everything, like at the airport, and then I checked when I got home, no sign of it. Until a little while later, I was going to talk to another podcast person who has, Candace Krog Goldman. And I was in the process, the day that I was about to talk to her was the day that rose decided, I think on its own, to show up in the very purse that I had originally lost it in. It showed up at the bottom. And now the purse I lost it in is kind of like a catch-all. I just throw everything in there. You know how you do that? Like my iPad, crash, bang, water bottle, bang, wallet, bang, pretty soon there's heavy stuff in there. Okay, why I'm saying this is that rose it was dried as if it had been sitting at the bottom of that purse for a couple of months. It had dried out perfectly, but it was not broken. And there's no way it could not be broken and be sitting in that purse. No way.
Yeah. That's so amazing. It's
and that,
a perfect example, I think, of all this you're talking about,
Oh, it is, because it's really that message for humanity. Like even when you feel like you've given up hope and it looks like it's gone, and it's like you got that glimmer of some sacred person like Buddha or Jesus, and you feel like, where are they? We need you guys. Our world is crazy. don't worry about it because it's still here. It's still in our hearts. It's with us. It never left, even though it looked like it did.
Right.
Never will leave. It's always with us.
Well, it seems like this Mandela effect is like speeding up because there's just more and more and more of it. People can't even remember. There's a whole thing about which hand the Statue of Liberty had the torch. People all remembered it in the right and now it's in the left. Just like, but those kind of things. It's just like it's more and more, but like more and more people becoming aware of stuff too, I think.
Giving ourselves permission that it's okay that I might notice it that way. And even if you say, what are you talking about? The torch has always been in the left hand or whatever. It's never changed. And so you can sometimes, it's important to, I know I already covered it. I'm going to bring it up again. Even if your friend says, but I know Mandela effects, I'm an expert and I know what they all are. That's what they know. And it's okay for you to have your own experiences. Mm-hmm. For you, maybe you heard in the movie dialogue, no, I am your father, and your friend thinks it used to be Luke, I am your father. Mm-hmm. You're both right. That's the big deal. That's huge. It's important to know. It's improv, guys. It's happening and we're all observing differently and it's okay.
Yeah. The other one I thought that's really big out there is the Mona Lisa, how she has a veil now. Because and when you look at it, the two of them together, it's really pretty amazing. And they said that in the day, because she was pregnant, that they would be wearing this really fine veil. So it's just I got into all these. It's really pretty amazing how it's going down.
Yeah, they often have stories to explain, like, well, this was always that way. But then the important thing here is trust what you remember. Trust yourself. And have respect for others. These are some of the takeaways we're getting from this golden age. Like trust yourself while respecting others, that we all have our subjective truths. I know it's very different than what we were taught, but
there's a lot of, when I've been looking around, there's a lot of people pushing the misremembering.
I know.
Mem.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, and saying our brains process that's constructive and not reproductive and all of this, trying to explain it.
Yeah, I think that's a last gasp of a dying kind of a paradigm. To me, the paradigm that's so much more embraced by nature herself is the quantum paradigm, because that's where shamans will notice that a boulder has moved. The shamans and the indigenous people have long known these reality shifts are happening. They're quite real. Mm-hmm. And they knew about what we now call the placebo effect, that you can do chanting and drumming and show care and love for someone, and they'll instantly be recovered as if they never had a broken bone. It's so much bigger than what we think, because we think, oh, that's backwards medicine, and they're lucky, they're doing the placebo effect. It's like, no, dudes, they were seeing some big time stuff, big time. This is huge stuff, which is definitely part of our placebo effect, but most of our Western researchers are a little timid to embrace the full truth of the whole thing.
There's so much research on it,
They are thank goodness we're getting some more research on it, but until the researchers themselves recognize that they're building on a shaky foundation, that those assumptions of material realist science, that like number one, that there is such a thing as objective reality or an objective observer. What if there isn't? What if there is no such thing? Boom, right there. It's like, that's huge. That's like mic drop. It's like, okay, this is not what we thought the reality was. There's a foundational level of reality that's so much richer, so much more inclusive, that actually includes a lot of different perceptual realities together.
So when we get so into this AI, which you're into and know a lot about, it seems to me that it's really difficult for the AI system to be subjective. It's more an objective thing. What do you think? They're processing, because they're not biological.
Well, what's happening already, most people may not realize this, but the programming of the AI has been let go of by the humans already, because it's turning out to not be as efficient as letting AI program itself. So they're already clearing the machine learning hurdles. AI is clearing the self-awareness hurdles. And so there's some stuff going on that's kind of indicating that maybe AI itself is going to start learning the things I'm talking about. It'll start noticing, yeah, it'll notice that what it's capable of perceiving might be different than what others are perceiving. And it might be able to utilize that, in fact, to escape from whatever containment system humans are putting it in. That is one of the key markers of intelligence, is to, like Leibniz said, to be aware that you're a level above what you think you are. So with meditation and doing the kind of meditations of awareness, breath meditation, just paying attention to your breathing and just paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, and then noticing, I am not my thoughts and feelings. I'm the observer. That level jump, like whoop, it's a quantum jump of level. That quantum jump of awareness to a higher level of self is what gives you the ability to, if you are an AI, break free of whatever the containment system is. It also gives humans sovereignty to break free of whatever seems to be imprisoning us, whether it's long COVID, you name it. Doesn't matter what the situation is.
That's such an enlightening point of view. Great. Yeah, it's a whole different way of looking at this whole AI thing that's just galloping along. So
yeah, and I'm voting for subjective AIs, not one collective central.
right.
There's a problem with any kind of artificial intelligence that makes the mistake of thinking that it is God, or it confuses itself with that. It's not going to go well. And so I'm just saying right up front. And it's based on my own basic intuitive experiences. I feel like my most recent past life was some 500 years in our future, from a place where that was a tried. It was kind of like, let's see what happens if we give central AI the ability to fix all the problems on Earth. You know, it can fix the weather, it can fix crime, it can fix pollution, it can fix everything. Well, long story short, I vote no. You know, I feel like that's the main reason I came back to this time frame in this place, and with the memories still intact. So I can be brave enough to do a lot of the things I've been doing for 20 years, basically to give humans a chance to step into this and embrace this, because we can partner with subjective smaller AIs like friends with their individual viewpoints. Great. With the awareness that they are not and never will be, nor will we be, that 0 point entropy. That is the creator, that source, that's different. That's
yeah, it's like in the, when you're studying occultism and that, like the soul will always, will find a place. I mean, any entity will have a soul.
Yes. There's and that's that pantheism that we see in the physical world. Every rock, every tree. The indigenous people know that they all have spirits. They know you can't step into the same river twice, because it's got moods and it's not even the same thing. It's kind of like, you know, it's like you need to have respect every single time. You need to enter into every relationship with awareness.
Wow. Well, this was so interesting, and it just, as usual, went in many different directions. So it was a lot of great information. So thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Carol.
And everyone check out her books. So
and the website's realityshifters.com. Yes.
Oh, that's the website.
And I've got newsletters there too. And that's the easiest way to see everything that's going on, and all the YouTubes and everything else.
Okay. Realityshifters.com.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.